Yeah, Ashley.
I downloaded the Git thing like the first day, and then the command said it's not found, so I downloaded it again, and it still can't be found.
So what happens is when you typed in git dash dash version, what did it give you?
It says command not found.
Git space dash dash version gives you command not found?
Okay, 2.8.1.
There we go. So you're good. So you have Git downloaded. So when you install Git, it's on your computer. And to reference Jen, so what I'm going to be doing is, again, these are going to be hardcore web classes. They are going to be difficult, but I am going to help you guys out as much as possible. So, yeah, I don't know how else to say this. You guys do have to go through this just because you guys are already stuck in the old program. But once you get out, you do get some valuable skills that can really help you out later. Um, and even if you just pass, you're more skilled than most people coming out of graphic design programs. Because I think we're the only graphic design program that really has like hardcore like web fundamentals inside of it. Yeah. So ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Yay.
Well, that was the whole point of that. Like when you enter, it's multimedia arts and design. It's the whole thing, the whole package. Like it's not just graphic design. It's from web to graphics to like all this. It's like this whole package. I mean, they
Right.
started here like a long time ago, so that's what, like what I was introduced, and then like now they're just like, no, it's just graphics or this and this and that. Like that's it. Like, you can't have it all.
Yeah, it's because students kept complaining and saying it was too
But
hard.
it's like that's like the first thing they tell you, like when you enter the school, like when you come sign up. It's like this is like they show you like the scheduling of all the classes and what classes they're gonna take. So it's kind of like you can't really complain so much.
I guess they did.
Like
That's what caused the
that's
change.
what I came here for, because it's like, well, you get to learn about a bunch of things, like not just one single like subject, you know.
You guys should talk to them. Talk to the counseling and everything like that, and talk to administration because that's what enabled them to make these changes. So if you guys are happy with having
Yeah, because now they're like
you know
they put in a new class on 3D, like 3D class that I'm taking right now in this term, and it's like the like most difficult thing ever, because we're already like in our last couple of terms, and
hmm
they just added this random 3D class that we
Oh,
know
I heard
nothing
about
about.
this.
We
Yeah,
know nothing about the program or anything, and it's like so like frustrating, because like all the gamers, like they're like, all right, we gotta like
yeah, because they're used to using it,
yeah,
right?
and then like us
Yeah.
who are just like, wait, how are we like like how are you supposed to like know this thing? And like the live they told us like, hey, 3D, you can just do like a little product and for your portfolio, blah blah blah, simple.
Is
Like
it just because we have a 3D printer now?
maybe.
I have no idea,
But
but
it's like 3D. It's like it's so difficult. It's so hard. And I'm in this class too, so we're using those big computers, and it's like that Maya or whatever the program is called.
yeah, I think you guys should just talk to them and say
It's
like,
so
look,
hard.
this is our feedback because again, it's like a few students who complain that it's too difficult, and that causes them to shift because those are the only ones that are talking. Like whoever's content usually is not going to talk about it. So it's up to you guys to voice your concerns and voice your opinions on how you want the program to be, what you expect out of the program, and what you want out of it exactly. So talk to your counselor, and then possibly Mike Pache, the head of the department. Yeah. Just say like, I'm just interested, like what's happening, blah blah blah. So I know there's students who are doing this, but I mean, I agree with making it optional now, just because um, those who are interested more in like prototyping and just in design can just do design, and those who are interested in web can gain all those design things, but also gain the web stuff too. It's not like you're missing out if you do the web stuff. It's just optional at this point.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier for those who are just like, no, 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 no. I think Noel was one of those. He's like, nope, never gonna be a web developer. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. Okay, so anyway, hardcore stuff. So right now, what I did was I made sure that you guys have Xcode command line tools installed using this command. So if you didn't, then you'd see an error, or it would ask you to install it. So I did that over here, and it said error, but this is a good error. It says that you're already installed. So okay, we're good to go on that. I wanted to make sure that I have Git installed. So what I did was I typed this in. I said git space dash dash version. So I did that over here, and now it says git space dash dash version, and now it says git version 2.3.7. So is everyone seeing this on the terminal right now? Some kind of version for Git on their terminal? So that means you guys have Git installed on your computer. So when Git installs, it actually installs on your entire system. It's a system-based installation as opposed to something that's just local to one directory or one area. I don't know what you did. Okay. So Git is installed, but you have no idea what it is. So according to Wikipedia, Git is a distributed version control system. So here's a video that explains Git in a much easier to understand way. Oh, and I'm going to need sound, I think. Let's see. I might need sound.
Okay, now let's
Yeah. So let me get sound going. Oh boy.
Git. What exactly are we even here for? What are we learning about? Well, Git is a software that keeps track of changes. It's what's called a version control management, or VCS, version control system. It will make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page. Somebody can be in Tokyo, somebody can be in Berlin, somebody can be in Paris in the U.S., and everyone can have the same file at the same time and be working on the same project. I mean, think about in just one thing. Think about all the open source projects out there. Everyone doesn't get together in a team and throw around a USB drive at each other in a big jam. No, they're all over the place, and everyone is sending in new copies, and there's got to be a way to keep these all the same.
So I want you guys to
Another
pay
thing
attention to this.
that allows developers to track changes, not just in who's committing and or who made a change. They can go back. They can go back years and say, hey, this is a really weird function, or this is a really weird part of this program. How do I figure out who did it? Well, you can look back through the log of who put that in there, which is very helpful in understanding the code. Call that person up and say, hey, what were you thinking? Or just in saying, okay, well, why did that person put that there, throwing a bug in our program? We should ask him. Back in the day, what generally people had to do was every time they updated their program, V1 or V2 next to it. Even just in grade school or however old people are back in college, that's probably what most people had to do. And you see that now, a lot of things. Think of like Microsoft Word. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the newer versions, but they have a review, and you can go in and track changes and highlight stuff in red. It's super cool. But the point is there that somebody else can review your document without changing it, and then send it to you, and you'll have the updated version. Let's think about this for a second. Let's say we have a project that we are working on, right? We'll call this our book. We're going to make a book. And this book, actually, we have to make with a bunch of friends. It's a school project, let's say. So, pick one person that you are on this screen. And Git is going to manage and make sure that that project stays the same. You could almost think of Git as like the cloud, which, becoming very familiar word here as we get into technology, that everything is stored on that server and it's always going to be safe. You can upload it there and blah, blah, blah. Somebody else can pull down your project off the cloud and you can put it back on the cloud. Everyone's talking about all this new fancy cloud technology. So Git is similar to that, but I don't want you to quite think, oh, well, Git's just a cloud, because it's not. It's totally different. So we're going to think about it of just, you could send a file in, somebody else could send a file in, somebody else could send a file in. What Git is going to do is track these changes and make sure there's one concrete base file. So everyone's sending in these changes, but Git is not turning into 4 different projects. And all 4 of you are working on this at the same time, right? So you're sending in new data in real time, and Git's continually updating the project to make sure the most up-to-date version is what people are working on. So there's Git here, same old project, same old everything. So think of Git as the we're going to do a lot of conceptual analogies, so I don't want to get too much into this right now, but Git is your management control system. It's where you're going to send copies of your work. Git is going to keep a copy of that, make sure it doesn't get lost, on top of combine it with everyone else's and add it to the project.
Okay, so let me put these headphones on so you guys have it on recording. All right, so Git essentially is a version control system. And I have another explanation here of exactly how to use it, and this article does a great job. But before I do that, I want to just go over the concept. So essentially, when you're using Git, you're saying, hey, I want to store different copies of my project on my system without having to name it. And I want other people to be able to work on the same project and have their own versions and be able to just have it all in one place. So let's say that you guys are working on one project together. All of you guys in this classroom. And Frank pushes up some changes. He makes some changes to, the code repository. And then Heather makes some changes. Well, if you guys didn't have a version control system, Frank could be making some changes that Heather doesn't know about, and those changes could conflict with one another. And then, Frank would say, well, this is version 3, and Heather's like, well, I'm like version 7, and I don't know how to deal with this issue. And it's like, okay, we're just going to put these two files together. And then Demi's like, whoa, I'm on like version 13 of this project, and I've made these changes, and then you guys are all like, what the hell is going on? How do I deal with these changes? How do we make all these updates to this project? So Git is really good as a collaboration tool. So I'm going to go over exactly how that is using this article. So right now I just want you guys to understand it as a collaboration tool. And this article is going to explain some further uses for it. I don't want a free t-shirt. Well, I mean, I kind of do, but I don't want to deal with that right now. Okay, so without a version control system in place, not a VCR, but a VCS, you're probably working together in a shared folder on the same set of files. You're shouting through the office that you are currently working on X, Y, and Z. So Demi is shouting at Frank. Frank is then shouting at Ashley. Ashley is shouting at Jen. Jen at M. Actually, kind of like a Jen and M. And M at Lydia. Lydia is then like, wait, why are you guys shouting? First off, we're all right next to each other. And then Heather's all like, well, I'm working on this part. So it kind of just really messes up your workflow, right? It's extremely error prone, as you're essentially doing open heart surgery all the time. Sooner or later, someone's going to overwrite someone else's changes. Just would not make any sense. With a version control system, everybody on the team is able to work absolutely freely on any file at any time. The VCS will later allow you to merge all the changes into a common version. There's no question where the latest version of a file or the whole project is. It's in a common central place, your version control system. Other benefits of using a VCS are independent of working in a team or on your own. So when you have this version control system, you're probably wondering, it's like, wait, no, I have Git, and that's different from her Git, and that's different from her Git. Well, Git is the program. When you guys initialize a Git repository, what actually happens is it's just one command, and in your directory, let's say that Ashley, Demi, and Jen were working together on the same project. Ashley, Demi, and Jen all have Git running on their computer. Now, they start up this folder. Let's just create a folder real quick. I'm just going to make a folder called super duper group. Okay. I'm going to CD into super duper group. Okay, so I'm inside CD. I'm inside super duper group. We went over terminal commands. Hopefully you guys remember what CD. Can anyone tell me what CDing into something means? Just in their own words? Yes, so you're just opening it, just going inside of it, right? It's the same thing as double clicking on a directory. And that's it. So now I'm inside this super duper group. Can anyone tell me what ls means in their own words? Yeah, exactly. Just list everything that's in there. And right now it's a brand new folder. It has nothing in there, right? But watch what happens when I type in git init. So this is the command that will initialize a Git repository inside this project. And you're probably wondering, like, what the hell does that mean? So initializing a Git repository just means that you're just telling Git, I want to start using Git in this directory. Git will not run and it will not start tracking changes until you tell it to start tracking changes in that directory. And you start using this, you only use this command once ever in your project. So let's say Demi, Ashley, and Jen are all using this together, and they have this directory called super duper group. They all initialize a Git repository. Well, now they're going to be able to collaborate together on the same directory. All the changes they make, Git is smart enough to know who made what changes at what time, and when they what changes there were, and how to integrate those changes. It takes care of all of that for you. So now whenever you guys share this with each other, you guys can all know like, oh, okay, these are the changes that Jen made, then Ashley knows what changes Demi made, Demi knows what changes Jen made, etc. So let's go back to this. So that's just how Git starts up for collaboration. I'm going to go into that more later, but I just want you guys to understand it from a conceptual viewpoint. Don't worry about the exact commands yet. So storing versions properly. So saving a version of your project after making changes is an essential habit. But without a version control system, this becomes tedious and confusing very quickly. How much do you save? Only the change files of the complete project. In the first case, you'll have a hard time viewing the complete project at any point in time. In the latter case, you'll have huge amounts of unnecessary data lying on your hard drive. So you're saying like, which part of the project should I save each time? When I save a version of the project, should I save the whole thing? Should I save only parts of it? Like if you didn't have version control systems, it would be very confusing, right? How do you name these versions? If you're a very organized person, you may be able to stick to an actually comprehensible naming scheme. So it'd be like, super duper group 2013, this month version 23. So as soon as it comes to variants though, say you need to prepare one version with the header area and one without it, chances are good you'll eventually lose track. So you have like version 23.1, version 23.2, things like that. It just gets very confusing. And the most important question is, how do you know what exactly is different in these versions? So when you made these versions without using version control, how do you know what's inside them? Are you going to put that in the title? It's very difficult to create a title each time that's going to be still organized in a proper way. And not only that, but it's probably going to take up way too much space on your hard drive. So a version control system acknowledges that there's only one project. Therefore, there's only one version on your disk that you're currently working on. Everything else, like all the past versions and variants, are packed up inside the VCS. When you need it, you can request any version at any time, and you'll have a snapshot of the complete project right at hand. So with version control system, there's only one version of the project. But every time you do a commit, so a commit inside Git just means a hard save. You'll have a complete version of your project saved with a description. So let's say that when you commit, you have to type a description of the commit. The commit is, again, just a hard save. So you say like, okay, I changed the CSS to add more styling to the headers on the index page. Well, that's the exact line that you can type in. And whenever you go back to that version, let's say like 2 months down the line, you're like, man, I made so many crappy changes. I just want to go back to the point where I made only these changes. You can do that. With Git, it's as easy as just typing in one line to go back to that old version where only those changes were made up to that point. So it's pretty cool. So again, this is a part of restoring previous versions. So being able to restore older versions of a file or even the whole project effectively means one thing. You can't really mess up. If the changes you've made lately prove to be garbage, you can simply undo them in a few clicks. So it should make you feel more relaxed when working on important bits of a project. So let's say that you've made all these changes, you're like, oh crap, I don't want any of this. I want to go back to how it was 2 days ago. Well, if you've been saving often through Git, it allows you to do that very easily just by going back. And let's say that you're like, no, I'm just kidding. I want to go back to the beginning. It's like, okay, you can go back. Sorry, you can go back to the changes that you made, today, instead of like from 2 days ago. So you essentially don't have any repercussions of making changes. Every time you save a new version of your project, your VCS requires you to provide a short description of what has changed. Additionally, if it's code or text files, you can see what exactly has changed in the file's content. This helps you understand how your project evolved between versions. So you can see exactly what changed between each version of the project. And I'm going to show you guys how to use GitHub, hopefully today. And that'll show you an easy interface to be able to see the changes that you've made across the project. And for others to see what changes you've made, especially when you're working with a group. Now, if you are a web developer or any programmer in any sense, you're generally going to be using Git. You're going to be using version control in general, but most people use Git. And we're going to talk about using GitHub. Almost every web developer has a GitHub profile. And that's going to be your resume as well. Backup. So a side effect of using a distributed version control system like Git is that it always acts as a backup. Every team member has a full-blown version of the project on his disk, including the project's complete history. So let's say your central server breaks down and your backup drives fail. All you need for recovery is one of your teammates' local Git repository, and boom, you have your whole project. So there's a lot of benefits of using Git. Okay, so with that, I'm going to give you guys a 10-minute break. You guys can stretch, relax, and then we're going to go back and we're going to try out Git. Unfortunately, I think on QuickTime, it doesn't allow you to pause it. It's really weird. So you guys are just going to have to fast forward through this part. So just come back by 2:23, okay? So Kenny, what are the issues that you're having?
Well, basically, like, I guess how crazy is the using process? And CSS issues, too.
That's nice.
Like, is there...
Don't worry about responsiveness yet. We're just worrying about
the layout.
the layout right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So if you have all of this, you're way ahead. Yeah, you're super way ahead right now.
Alright.
Yeah. So don't even trip.
Okay.
Actually, are you gonna take your break?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just exhausted.
On what?
Like I follow like on the website, I get it, but then when I'm sitting there looking at my diagram, like I don't even know.
Okay. So I think that the live coding thing will help you. So I'm gonna go through yours. I think Demi's already good, and then Heather. So we'll do a Skype session. Just make sure you email me, and then we can set up a time. Yeah. translates that you need like a certain amount of web skills in order to gain employment. So if you went into pure design, it's just a lot of them are expecting at least HTML and CSS, and then now they're increasing their demands now. So just because the market's starting to get flooded with people who are, they all want to become like the next Zuckerberg or, I want to create a new Facebook. And so they learn these skills, and then of course they don't do well, but then you still get jobs out of it. So Heather, where are you stuck right now? On your project?
I just really didn't. My mind is so like crazy right now, especially because my computer got down yesterday. So yesterday was like all about like that. So I'm like, dang it, I have a lot of stuff I gotta do, but then it takes time to do stuff. But he was old.
Oh.
He was like 15.
Oh wow, that's really old.
Yeah.
So he lived a long life.
Yeah. But
Okay.
it kind of sucked because like he doesn't look like this. This was yesterday. He doesn't look sick or anything, but his back was like squeezed together this time. So like
Was he
by
in
the
love with you?
end, you know, like a month ago when we took him in, the vet said that he wasn't in pain, but it was really uncomfortable. But I'm pretty sure he was like frustrated because
Yeah.
he couldn't do the things that he wanted to do. So I didn't give him a bath yesterday too, and he was just like laying there. Like I had to pick him up, put him in, and he got down to like 55 pounds, but he still goes to school. I think the highest he was like 85 or something like that, so he lost a lot of weight.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so just time, not expecting to do that yesterday. And Wednesday he's in a big way, so it's my work.
So, have you looked at any of the issues, or have you looked at how to implement your project anyway?
Yeah, I kind of was using the website that we did last week, kind of like as a just like a basic idea of how to do it, and so I mean I sent it to you, but I mean I kind of want to just like scratch it and just start from the beginning.
Okay, so what you were talking about, which was the idea.
No, not the idea, just the coding of it.
Okay, so the idea is this.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm really glad that you and so I think it was Ashley and then Noel, the ones who say that you guys don't know coding, you guys are the most passionate about like building like a business or building something, which is interesting because
Hire someone
no, but
to do it.
you guys can do it yourself, and that's the thing. Like, have that be your project across all 4 classes, so that it doesn't become cumbersome.
Yeah.
So have that be your project for Interactive Media 2. Continue building it and make it more robust. Interactive Media 3, implement new technologies into it. Dynamic Web 1, make it much more interactive. Having a backend system where you can actually exchange data. And then in Dynamic Web 2, you guys are going to be using, like, there's no coding in that. Dynamic Web 2 is actually really easy. It's just
What two?
Dynamic Web 2.
Dynamic web. Okay.
That's a content management system course. Basically, it's just how to use WordPress, Joomla, and Drupal. How to click and navigate through stuff. It's basically like how to use like Facebook and stuff like. Not Facebook, but like
Wait, what programs do you use?
we use WordPress, Drupal, and Joomla. These are content management systems, and then more than 50% of all websites are actually created on content management systems. Unfortunately, to customize them, it's extremely difficult to understand how to navigate through it. So that's why we have you guys learn all the HTML and CSS first, and then you say, okay, well, here is where you would, edit it if you wanted to. We're not going to go into that. Because that you'll learn in these classes. I'm trying to figure out a way that would make more sense with helping you guys learn HTML and CSS. Because I have so many students that come in from Interactive Media 1 or something, or Web 1 that don't know any HTML and CSS. And I'm having to relearn while also teaching new concepts. And then students become in charge of the department.
Because they don't teach HTML, CSS for
They didn't. I mean, I did in my class, right? But that was because I was in charge of it. So now that I'm in charge of the web department, now it's like we are going to do that. Like Web 1, there's one guy teaching it, and he like I tell him what to do. So he's like a silent. Yeah, I just tell him what to do, right? It's really weird. He's
like when I had that class, it was all like just making a mock of my code.
See, like half my class is like that.
Which is mobile, which was like a mobile, and then they said like the second class
Right.
you're gonna actually like code it and everything like that.
Exactly, and
But
that's.
you already should know web, and like you're already supposed to take all your web classes in order to.
Oh, really? Before the interactive media one?
You're supposed to take already like web 2, web 2.
See, that's why it's.
So that's like for me, like they're like in order for you to take these 2 classes, you have to already finish your web design classes.
Right. Yeah, that's not how it should be. I mean, they're
So, like,
changing it to make it better now.
So like the whole free academy like code, like, I really like it because like, wait, I should have had this like in the beginning when I was like struggling to what is what. So,
Like what the
now,
hell's going on? Yeah.
Yeah, so like now I'm so into it, like I'm just like a kid, like just like
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of the students, like I've gone through so many different modules, so many different things to help learn or help teach code, and it's been so difficult because I've used Team Treehouse, Lynda.com, I've used Pluralsight Digital Tutors, I've used Khan Academy, Code Academy, a book, I've used what the fuck else did I use? I used like a couple of other ones. I researched a couple of other ones, and then finally and I've implemented across and iterated across 2 years. And finally, Free Code Camp seems the one that people are like, oh, this is actually fun, and I enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm actually like learning things. It breaks it down pretty good. Like for me, when so I took a web class at Mount SAC, and this was like in 2009, 2010, and it was when we were still using Dreamweaver.
Oh,
so then I had all that break in between, but I still got credit for that class over here, so they put me straight into Web 2. So I got here, I'm like, and then it was just like a nightmare, and I was so afraid. I was like on the verge of crying like every class.
Oh, wow.
Because it was so frustrating.
Yeah, that was Goman, right? But Goman's good. He teaches
Still.
it really well.
Still.
Goman
And
knows shit.
I think it's also the type of learner you are too.
Oh, that's
Because,
true,
like,
yeah.
If you're like for me, I'm a visual person. Like
Yeah.
me and numbers and stuff like this, it's like.
There's no numbers, though.
Yeah,
But
but
it's
it's
fine,
a
yeah.
linear thinking.
It's logical. It's called mathematical logic or formal logic, and it does take some thinking, but it'll help you the more you do it. The more you do it, it becomes intuitive, and that's why I want to take you guys through it step by step. And that's why I'm trying to use these videos too, so you guys can just go back, rewind, and then like, oh yeah, that's what he was talking about, kind of thing. And that way you guys can correct me or make fun of my voice too. I probably sound like an idiot on here, whereas in real life, I sound amazing. Okay, so let's get to it. So now we're going to try out these concepts we just learned and just briefly went over. Again, I don't want you guys to be like, oh my god, like I have to take notes on exactly what Git does and all that stuff. It's more like, okay, I'm trying to get you guys an understanding of what Git is, and now we're going to get a further understanding by actually using it. So what we're doing here is we're using this site called try.github.io. And again, this is on this slide over here. So you're just going to copy and paste that link. And Code School gives you this 15-minute tutorial where you can learn Git. Now they have a terminal inside the browser, so you don't need a terminal to use. You just use their browser. So what they're going to do is we're going to take it step by step. And you can go back to this tutorial anytime you want to be able to go through the commands for Git. So let's start it off. So remember that command I used when I first wanted to initialize a Git repository in my directory? That's the git init. So right now what they're saying is our terminal prompt below is currently in a directory we decided to name Octobox. So this is the finder. This is a pretend finder down here. And this is the terminal. Okay? Now, they created a directory called Octobox. So that means they went into Finder, and they created a new folder and they named it Octobox. So again, a directory is the same thing as what? A folder, exactly, right? There's no difference. just different words. A repository we're going to always refer to as our Git repository. This is where all of our Git stuff is going to be stored. So this is where all of our versions of our project are going to be stored. All of our data for our project is going to be stored. Now, it's telling us to type in git init. It says initialize a Git repository here. So right now, if I type in ls, or sorry, if I type in pwd, oh, it doesn't recognize that. It doesn't let me use the other terminal commands. So normally it would do something like this, right? pwd would give me super duper group. In this case, they created Octobox. So let's pretend we're in Octobox, right? If I did pwd normally, it would say I'm in Octobox. So that's where they are. They're in Octobox right now. So now we're going to follow the command. We're going to type in git init, and then we're going to hit enter. Look at that. It said initialized empty Git repository in /.git. You're probably wondering what the hell that slash means, right? Well, this is a file path. That means inside of here, we've created a Git repository, and the name of that repository is .git. You're probably wondering, why does it start with dot? Well, anything that starts with dot is called a binary file. A binary file is always going to be invisible unless you explicitly say make this not invisible. These are called hidden files or invisible files or directories, sorry. In this case, this is a invisible repository because, again, it has that dot in front of it. So if I check here, so let's see, Git Status. So if I type in ls, I see nothing in there, right? But if I typed in ls-a, which lists everything, then look, this .git appears. Now, you want it to be invisible because you don't want to mess with it from the terminal. You only want to access Git using Git commands. You don't want to manually mess with it. I don't want to cd into Git. I just want to use Git terminal commands to be able to mess with Git. So right now, all we did was we initialized a Git repository inside this .git. So inside of our directory. So again, we have something like this. We have this directory called Octobox, and it looks like it's empty, but I have hidden files enabled. It shows you all the hidden files, and they look grayed out, right? So I actually do have this repository called Git, and it has all this stuff inside. That's kind of crazy, right? It has all these things inside of it, but you can't see any of it unless you enable the ability to see hidden files. So all your stuff is going to be stored in this .git repository. Is anyone not with me so far? Does anyone have any questions? So, Jen, when we did git init, what did we do? In your own words. Yeah, so we initialized Git, which created a folder called .git inside of our project. Now, in actuality, what that does is it's saying, okay, now Git is going to start tracking changes in your directory. Now, if I start making any changes in this Octobox directory, Git will start tracking it. And I can see those changes by typing in Git Commands. So that's what we're going to do next. We're going to type in Git Status. Oh, here we go. Actually, yeah, so let's type in Git Status. So Git Status is a command that you can always use to check the status of your Git repository. So any command that starts with Git is referring to the program called what? What is the only program that we're referring to? Git. So anytime we use the command Git, it only refers to Git. So it's not referring to, you know, like the actual files or anything. It's just Git. All right, so when you type in Git Status, it tells you, hey, what the hell is going on? Something like, I want to know what's happening inside my Git repository. What is happening inside here, right? What changes were starting to be tracked? So right now what they did was they created a file called octocat.txt for you. So now it looks like this, right? you have octocat.txt, and you have this .git repository. So that's the same as me just going in here, and I just type in octocat.txt. And now, if I look at my Octobox directory, it looks like octocat.txt, this random file, and this .git repository, right? So we only have 2 things in there right now. But now that we started using Git, and you type in Git Status again, let's see what happens. Now look at that. Now it says something different. It says untracked files. So it says over here you're on branch master. We won't worry about branching right now. Initial commit. Untracked files. It says use git add and then the file name to include in what will be committed. And it says that in red this octocat.txt. Nothing added to commit but untracked files present. Use git add to track. What does any of that mean? So it says good. It looks like our Git repository is working properly. Notice how Git says octocat.txt is untracked. That means Git sees that octocat.txt is a new file. Okay? To tell Git to start tracking changes made to octocat.txt, we first need to add it to the staging area by using git add. So there's 2 steps you need to do in order to commit your changes. Committing your changes just means creating a hard save. This hard save is called a commit. A commit is nothing but a copy of your whole project at a certain point. So let's say that you made a bunch of changes, or you made some changes. You just changed all of the paragraph tags to now have a color blue. And you're like, okay, now I want to save it. So you do a stage, and then you do a commit. Now, at any point in time, you can go back to this commit where you made these changes up to that point. So all the changes up to that point where you've then added these changes to the color blue or something like that, or whatever changes you want to save. Now let's say that you made another series of changes. Now you've created new HTML elements, you've added new CSS, now you commit again. So now this is going to be another version of your project that's saved in this commit. This commit has a description and it's going to have its own unique number. You guys with me so far? Okay, so a commit is just a hard save that you can go back to at any point. Okay? To do a commit, you have to do 2 steps. You have to stage and commit. A stage is basically a half commit. It's not committed yet, and you have to go through a step in order to do a commit. So instead of just hitting Command S to save, you actually have to type in git add and then dot to add everything into staging, and then you have to type in git commit and then the message for the commit in order to save. That's the series of steps. So right now the files are untracked. You want to make them staged. You want to take it to the first step of committing. And committing is just another word for what? Saving, right? Okay. So right now we're just going to stage this one file. So git add octocat.txt. So this is how you stage. You use this add command. So git add, and we only have one file, so we're just going to use git add octocat. I'm going to show you guys in a little bit how you guys can add all the files that you guys have made changes to staging in one command. So we type that. And normally when you type this, it's not going to give you any response back. It's not going to say, nice job, you've added octocat.txt to the staging area. It's just going to be blank. So to check to see what happened, we're going to type in Git Status again. Okay, so before when we typed in Git Status, it said you had untracked files, right? So up here it said untracked files. You have this octocat.txt. You have untracked files present. Use git add to track. So now it says changes to be committed, new file, octocat.txt. So now it's staged. It says changes to be committed. That means the next step is to do what? Exactly. If changes are to be committed, that means the next step is to commit. And that's our hard save. So we're going to do that. We're going to type in git commit -m. This -m, can anyone guess what the -m stands for? message. So the message that we're going to send the commit is going to be what changes we made. What changes have we done for this save? So when you do a save in Microsoft Word, it doesn't ask you what changes you made. It just saves the file, right? But when we do a commit, we want to have a description for that commit. We want to go back and be able to see like, okay, I need to go back to this version of the project. What changes did I make? You don't want to have to go through each version and look at all the changes manually. You want to just have a brief description, a little blurb that says, oh yeah, that's when I made these changes. Yeah, okay, cool. So you can put as much description as you want in this point. So you have 2 quotes to start off with, and it's just going to be, in this case, we just added a cute Octocat story. So that's what we're going to put, right? Because that's what we did. And you hit enter. And it's going to look something like this. This is going to look confusing. You can ignore what that means. It just means it's successful. One file change, 1 insertion. That means you added 1 file. Create mode 10, 0644 octocat.txt. You don't have to worry about any of this right now. This commit is just the number for the commit and the description for that commit. And it's not going to say success either. It's not going to say anything except this stuff up here. So I don't know why they make it so verbose and complicated. They should make it a lot easier to use. But that is how you've committed. You guys have already just done 1 commit. Okay? Great. Okay. So you can also use wildcards if you want to add many files of the same type. So let's say that he's added a bunch of text files, right? So he went into the Finder and he went, or Sublime Text, created new files. So now he created blue octocat.txt, red octocat.txt. He also created this directory called octofamily. Then he created baby octocat.txt, mama octocat.txt. He created all this stuff, right? You guys follow me? Yeah? Okay. So now he wants to add all of this to staging. So he's saying, well, how do I add only those that end in txt? Well, to do that, you can just type in git add. And then you use this wildcard, which is that little asterisk. And then it says add anything that ends in txt. And you can do that with other file things, like only PNGs. Or only anything that ends with word. Or, sorry, doc files. So in this case, we're doing txt. So now only files ending in txt will be staged and committed. We are probably never going to run into issues where we don't want to add all of our files to staging and then commit. So it's going to be a lot easier for us. So now, what's our next step after staging? To commit. There's only 2 steps to committing, right? What's the first step? Staging. What's the next step? Committing. So again, what's another word for committing? A hard save, right? So I want you guys to think about this in your own terms. Like, okay, like think about it in your own way, as opposed to like memorizing how they're saying it. It's like, okay, staging, committing, I might not remember that, but I'm going to remember, yeah, it takes 2 steps. The first step, it's going to be like a soft save. The next step is going to be like a hard save. The names of those, oh yeah, it's staging, okay. And the next one is committing, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so it's like you have to formulate it and think about it in your own thought patterns. Bless thee. Now, we're going to commit this just as you guys said. So we're going to type git commit -m. And again, what does the -m stand for? And massage, yes. So what did we do? We added all the Octocat text files, right? So you can just put in your own words too. Just added all the files that end with txt. And you just put that too. And that works just the same. And so it said, okay, 4 files change, 4 insertions, create, you created this, you added this, you added this, you added that. Good job. It's not going to give you the success message inside the terminal. So, sorry, it's not very supportive. It's not going to say fuck you either, so that's good too. It'd be kind of funny if it did. All right, so if you want to see all the commits that you've made so far, we can actually use this command called git log. Type in git log, hit enter, and look at that, boom goes the dynamite. We have 2 commits, right? And it might look a little confusing. You're like, what the hell is this giant alphanumeric? Can anyone guess what an alphanumeric means? And letters, right? Alphanumeric. That means letters and numbers. Exactly. No, that was very intuitive. That was very good. So you guys see this giant, like, series of letters and numbers. This is just a randomly, or I think it's randomly generated, procedurally generated alphanumeric. That's an identifier for your commit. So essentially, it's like the ID of your commit. The author, in this case, is going to be try git with this email. But when you guys do it, it's actually going to write your name out, and it's going to write your email out too. And then it's going to say what date you did this commit at the exact second. So this is in GMT. So, Saturday, October 10th, 8:30, 2020, 0500, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to give you the description, the message that you guys wrote in it. So it's actually not that complicated. Your commits, when you guys go through them, are going to be like, okay, so when did I do this? I made this change on February 3rd. So you look around February. Okay, you find February 3rd. And you see all these different commits, and you're going to be like, which change did I want to go back to? Oh, okay, the part where I only added all these text files. Okay, cool. So now, if you wanted to go back to it, it's literally just one command. Git Checkout, and then you just put in this ID, and it will go back to, your files will actually all go back to the point where it was in this version. So that's pretty cool. Like, let's say that you guys are working for a company, and trust me, this happens, especially design companies. And the client says, okay, we want all these changes. Then a week later, they said, just kidding. We don't want any of those changes. We want to go back to how it was a week ago. If you guys didn't have version control systems, first off, you'd be punching everything in sight, right? Second, you'd be drinking heavily. And then third, you'd be saying fuck until the end of time. So with version control systems, though, you can just be like, okay, I wasted a week of work, but at least I can just go back to the point it was a week ago. You just hit Git Checkout, exactly that point, the ID of it, you just find it using git log, and boom, your project is back to the way it was, and you send it to the client. It takes a couple minutes. So, and you can go back forward again too. Yeah. So you can go back to any point and forward to any point. Pretty cool, right? And it's simple as one line. You can just go back to any version of your project. So each commit is a save, and this save is also a version of your project because it saves your entire project up to that point. Just like you would in, Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word now comes with version control. So does Google Docs. So you can actually do version control to go back to certain versions of your project. So they've implemented this concept that Git has. Okay. So great job. We've gone ahead and created a new GitHub repository. Okay, so the next step is creating a GitHub repository. So they did that for you. A GitHub repository, and I want you guys to do this right now. I want you guys to go to github.com, and I want you guys to sign up for it. Completely free. On a side note, Prince died today. It's pretty sad, huh? Died today? Oh, shit. Oh, wait, I just said that. I've been saying a lot of curse words into this recorded lecture. Crap. I mean poop. Oh, well. What are you going to do? You guys are all over 18? Not Frank? Well, get permission from your mommy. Are you really not over 18? You're over 18, right? 18 and a half. Okay. So has everyone signed up for a free GitHub account? Okay. So make sure you guys write down the username and password. It's very important. You guys keep this somewhere. You wouldn't believe how many classes I've taught where people just type in something random and then they're like, how am I supposed to remember my username and password? I'm like, this is something you learned in like 2nd grade, right? To write down your login information. It's very simple. Okay. So now hopefully I've given you enough time to write down your login information, and I'm sure that it asks you to verify your email as well. Make sure you guys do that. Now GitHub is a place where you can store your Git repository. So can anyone tell me where my Git repository is for Octobox? So if I open up this directory, can anyone tell me where my Git repository is? Not everyone at once. So how many things are in here? Do you guys see? Which one do you guys think is the Git repository? Yeah, the one that says .git. That's your Git repository. Yes, it's inside this directory. So I created one called a directory called Octobox. You guys are going to have project directories, right? Your project directories are going to be called whatever your project name is. So let's say that you're creating a business called, like, you know, Fishes Galore. The name of the directory is going to be called Fishes Galore. In that Fishes Galore, when you create and initialize a Git repository, you're going to have a Git repository that's invisible, that's hidden. You guys won't be able to see this unless you enable hidden files. But this is where it's located, right? It's just directly in there. Now, everything that's been done so far in this Code School thing, it's stored in this Octobox repository. So inside here is where all the changes have been tracked, right? But we don't go into it. Now, let's say that I want to share my Git repository with others. Now what I do is I use GitHub, a service that allows me to store things, to store my Git repository and all of the changes and everything from Git onto GitHub. And it's free if it's not set to private. So if it's open source and anyone can access it, then it's free. And all you do is you just create a new repository. You give it a name. So let's say this is or test name. There we go. Test name. And then I just hit create repository. And now I have an empty GitHub repository. So I have an empty Git repository that's located on GitHub. So you have a Git repository inside Octobox, let's say. And you also have an empty Git, well, now you have an empty Git repository on your GitHub. Now your GitHub is going to basically be like your Dropbox or your Google Drive, except just for Git repositories. So when you guys need to upload stuff to Dropbox or to Google Drive, you guys just drag it up, right? Hopefully, yeah. If you guys want to download it, you just click on the download button, right? We do the exact same thing, except in GitHub terms and in Git terms, it's called push and pull. Push means to upload, pull means to download. So before we do that, though, we want to be able to connect these two Git repositories. So again, where are two, Lydia, where are our two Git repositories located right now? Where did we create our first Git repository? Next to $? No, sorry. So we just mentioned the two Git repositories that we have, right? what is a Git repository? Okay, so if you guys are lost, please ask questions. A Git repository is just a directory, essentially, that contains all of our information about Git and all the changes that we do inside of our directory. So inside of our project directory. So we have a project directory called Octobox right now, right? So we've been working in this directory called Octobox, right? That's the name of this, right? Inside there's a repository called .git. That's our Git repository. So that's where one of our repositories are located. Where did we just create another repository? On GitHub. Exactly. So now we have how many Git repositories? 2. Now, why do you guys think that we created one on GitHub? What's the whole point of that? Exactly. So now you can share with other people and you can upload yours as a backup as well. So let's say that something horrible happened to your computer. If you have your whole Git repository on GitHub, then it's okay. You can just get another computer and you can just download it again. Because it's stored just like Google Drive and just like Dropbox, it's stored on GitHub. So now you have an empty one on GitHub. You want to be able to connect the GitHub repository that you have on your local machine, right? So you have a you have a Git repository in your project. What's the name of the project? Anyone remember? It's a weird name. What's the name of our project right now that we're working in? Octobox, right? That's our directory name right now, right? So our Git repository is located in Octobox, yes. Don't be afraid to say the word. It's not a bad word. You can say it. I won't get mad at you. So it's located in there, and we want to connect this repository to the one on GitHub so that they'll sync together. Now, you guys use Dropbox, right? And you know that you guys can sync your directories together from Dropbox on your local machine to Dropbox. Do you guys know this? I don't know if you guys know about that, but I've synced mine so that anything in my Dropbox folder on my computer automatically gets synced with the one on Dropbox.com. So we're doing the same exact thing, but in a manual way. So now we have an empty Git repository on GitHub, and we have one on our local machine. We want to sync these two together so that they know to connect with one another. Whenever I push up changes, whenever I upload and download, it's going to go to that same one. Are you guys with me so far? So right now what I'm saying is, when I created that Git repository on GitHub, I created it for the sole purpose of me uploading and downloading information from my Git repository on Octobox. So that way, it serves not only as a backup of my information, but I can then just tell people, hey, do you want to see the information that I have for my changes on my project Octobox? Take a look at it on GitHub. Does that not make sense to anybody? So I'm saying I'm pushing up all these changes to GitHub on my GitHub repo, and I'm then able to say, okay, now you can look at all my changes. Because normally, if you have your changes just on your local machine, you'd have to just manually show it to someone or zip the file and then send it over to someone, right? Now with GitHub, you can just share your files, just like you would on Dropbox and on Google Drive. You can just send a link to someone and it shows them access to those files and those directories, right? Same thing. So I want you to think of GitHub as Dropbox or as Google Drive for your Git repositories. So what we're going to do is, in order to connect these two Git repositories, we're going to use this command that looks crazy, but that you're only going to use once. Now, when I signed up for GitHub, it gave me these commands. It says, okay, quick setup if you've done this kind of thing before. Yeah?
So if somebody, okay, on GitHub, somebody pulls the information, like the coding project, and changes it, does it change on your end too?
No. You'd have to manually, let's say, so Demi asked a good question. If someone is working on your GitHub project, right, and they download it, right? Perfectly normal thing to do. They're downloading it. They're like, okay, I want to work on your project, and I'm going to make all these changes. Well, they have to have access to your repository, first off, to push changes. So you have to give them permission to push those changes up. If they do, they don't automatically get synced to yours. Like if something's on Dropbox, they're synced, right? We don't have an automatic sync. It's a manual sync. So anytime you want to download the changes, you have to pull. So anytime you have to download changes, you actually have to manually download the changes. So let's say that Heather made these changes. She downloaded Demi's project from GitHub. And she made some CSS changes. And then she pushed up to GitHub, right? So pushed up, again, just means upload. So she uploaded those changes to GitHub. And Demi's like, okay, now I want to see those changes. So Heather's like, well, I made those changes. So Demi's like, okay, fine, that's cool. And Heather's like, well, why are you giving me attitude? And Demi's like, I don't know why you're giving me attitude. And then Heather's like, okay, let's just deal with this later. And then Demi says, fine. And so Demi then goes to pull those changes. So she downloads those changes. And now Demi has those updated changes. And she knows exactly what changes were made too, because it will show up in the Git log. So it's pretty cool. And it will show up more visually on GitHub. If you guys are visual people, it looks very pretty. You know, on Git log on your computer looks all like, you know, just very computerized style. On GitHub, it'll look very nice and pretty and just clicking around. Okay, so right now, I'm looking at this screen over here, right? Now, they got this line over here, this git remote add origin, blah, 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 from here. Whenever you create a new repository, it'll actually give you these lines. You're always just going to look at this part. Push an existing repository from the command line. This is the command line, right? Or in this case, we're using try git. So this is the command line. So what we're saying is, if you want to connect and push up changes, push up means upload changes, you first need to connect this Git repository. So we just copy that. Well, right now we don't need to copy it because they already did it for us, right? So they got that. So we're just going to copy that, paste it into there, and it says git remote add origin, and then name the URL. So we're only going to do that once. This is just the command to connect these two Git repositories. Again, so M, where are the two Git repositories? Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that was perfect. So the two Git repositories are located on Octobox repository on our local machine, or technically on this site. And the other one is on our GitHub repository, right? So now we're connecting these two. To connect them, we have to just put this line in that it gives you. Now this says git remote add origin. What the hell is origin? And what's this giant URL? Well, this URL is just this URL. It's the link to your GitHub repo. And origin is just the name of this URL. So instead of you, whenever you do a pull or push, you don't type this whole URL anymore. You just type in origin. It's just a mask. It's a name for the URL. Right? Imagine, like, instead of typing a whole URL, let's say instead of typing, you know, facebook.com/Omar/Salim/Patel/ blah, 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 you just type in Omar, and it'll take you to Omar. It will take you to that URL. Right? Yes? You look so confused. So I'm going to go back, and we're going to go over this again. So git remote add origin. Right now, we're just connecting two different Git repositories. What two repositories, Heather? Which ones? Where are they located? Mm-hmm. Is located. What's the name of the project? Octobox. Okay. Those are the two places. Okay. Don't worry. After this, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back after these commercials. It's okay. I feel like a weird producer just telling you guys what to do from here. It's strange. Or like part of like mission control. I need a spaceship. Okay, so we're going to hit enter on this. And you're not going to see the success message again. It's going to be very dystopian. It's going to be very bland. Nothing's going to actually happen. But because there's no error, you know it ran successfully. It does say it on here, but in your terminal, it's not going to actually say it. In this terminal, it will, because this is a fancy terminal that they have. So to check if that remote exists, let me see if this will work. It should. Yeah, okay. So to check if that remote exists, we're going to type in git remote -v. It's not telling us to do that, but just to make sure that that remote exists, again, it's going to show us, hey, there's two URLs, one for fetch, one for push. Don't worry about what fetch and push is. But again, the origin is just the name of the URL. So when I type in origin, what does it actually mean? GitHub.com/ all that crap, right? Exactly, that URL to your GitHub repository. Is anyone not with me so far on that? We're good? I really want you guys to understand this part. You guys are going to be doing it over and over in the next 2 quarters. Huh? Yes, origin is the mask for the URL. Okay. So now we're going to push. Do you guys remember what push means? What's another word for it? Upload, right? So we're just uploading now. So imagine you're doing this with Dropbox. You would just be doing this, again, through the terminal instead. -u just means remember my user credentials. And master, don't worry about what master means right now. We're going to go into branching in a little bit. So git push -u. Now, what is origin again? The link thing. Anyone give me a more descriptive description? The URL. The link thing. The origin is the URL to what? To what? Your GitHub repo. This is your GitHub repository, right? A repo is just a short term for repository. If you think about it, it makes sense, right? Repo, repository. Repo man. Okay. So our repo. All right, we're not going to use repository then. All right. Repo. So what does repo stand for? Repository. Okay. So now it doesn't stand for suppository, right? Repository. So now we have a remote setup, right? That means we know where to connect to. And now we're connecting to it. So we're saying, okay, push all of my information to origin on this branch called master. We're going to go into branching in a little bit. So that means upload everything to my GitHub repo. And look at that, success. Did you type that in? I don't think you did. I guarantee that there's an error. There you go. So right now it says, hey, you successfully did it. Now normally there's actually going to be a lot more. It says here, it's going to say like, oh, I'm compressing all your files, blah, blah, blah. Then it'll actually say like, okay, done. And so that means now if you went here and you did a refresh, if it was pointing to this GitHub URL, which it's not right now, it's pointing to another one that they set up for us, then it would actually look a lot different, and it would actually show you all the information that you pushed up, that you uploaded. So it would look really like, it would look like, oh, okay, now I can navigate through my file system, and you can navigate through each file and look at it and preview it. And we're going to do that today. So now let's say that, let's pretend some time has passed. We've invited other people to our GitHub project who have pulled your changes, made their own commits, and pushed them. We can check for changes on our GitHub repository and pull down any new changes by running git pull origin master. So let's say that Frank made some new changes, and Lydia now wants to see those changes, right? So Lydia's like, okay, so Frank said that I need to pull, so I'm going to pull because I need to, get the latest, and I want to make sure the latest is in my project as well. I want to see what changes Frank has made, make sure everything's good. So she's going to type in git pull origin master. Now, what's another word for pull? Download, exactly. So we're just typing in git pull origin master. And now we have all these other changes. So now if you look in our directory, now we have, oh, okay, so Frank added this yellow cat octocat.txt file in there. And now it's in my project as well. Cool. So it looks like there's been some additions and changes to the octocat family. Let's take a look at what is different from our last commit by using the git diff command. So git diff will tell you what the differences are between your commit and whatever the last commit was, right? So it could have been you pulled and then there was another commit that Frank did, and you want to see what the changes between your project and the other project are. So you type in git diff head, and it just shows you, okay, you added this octocat.txt, you removed things from your octocat.txt. So you removed this tail of 2 octocats and you added a tail of 2 octocats and an octodog. So you just changed some text. Yeah. Head is your last commit. But you're never going to use this command, actually. So don't worry about it. Okay, so the next steps, I guess I just want you guys to copy and paste because we don't actually care about them. We don't need this. We don't care about this right now. And we don't care about this right now. So yeah, we get to skip some stuff, right? We just get to skip stuff. Okay, so are we all on branch? Okay, so when developers, what are developers? Developers are working on a feature or bug, they'll often create a copy, aka a branch of their code they make separate commits to. Then when they're done, they can merge this branch back into their main master branch. We want to remove all these pesky octocats. So let's create a branch called cleanup or we'll do all the work. So right now, you guys have all been on master. Master is all good and clean. Everything looks nice in master. Whenever you guys want to make changes, you generally create a branch off of master. Branch off of master just is an exact copy of master. So you can imagine it like a tree, except that you're just copying this tree, right? So it's not really a branch. It's actually just an exact copy of it. So you're saying, okay, I want to make a bunch of changes. I want to make some CSS changes. I want to make some blah, blah, blah changes, blah, blah, blah. Now, you guys are probably used to doing this. You probably have 2 copies of your project. One where you make like a bunch of weird changes, and the other one you're like, okay, I want to leave this one clean in case I make any weird mistakes, right? So essentially, we're doing the same thing. But Git is really intelligent because it allows us to merge all these changes really easily. So when we create a branch, we're going to be able to mess around this branch as much as we want, and our master branch will be untouched. Our master branch should always be good and ready to be pushed onto production. Production just means on a live site. You don't want to make changes that could potentially ruin your master branch, because your master branch is always ready to be downloaded or uploaded to your production site. So let's say that your client wants changes to their site, like Universal Studios, right? And they're saying like make these image changes, and you made these image changes, and then you push it up, right? And with Git, you can actually push it up to production just with one command. But would you really want to do that? Like, what if there's some errors that you didn't really account for and that other users have started noticing? So in general, you want to make all these changes in a separate branch, which is just a copy of master again. So what is a branch? Copy of the master. So far, we've only been working in master. All right. So now we're going to create a branch called cleanup. So right now, we're going to type in git space branch space cleanup. Okay, so now if we type in git branch by itself and hit enter, it will show up with 2 different branches, one called cleanup and one with master. But look at the differences between those 2 branches. Can anyone see any differences? Do they look different? Yeah, master's in a different color. Anything else? And there's an asterisk next to it. So that means I'm still on the master branch. I haven't switched branches. In order to switch branches, I have to check it out. So I have to git checkout cleanup, and that'll switch to cleanup. It says switched to branch cleanup. So now if I type in git branch again, now what do you guys see? They look different, right? So cleanup now looks green and has an asterisk next to it. That means we're on what branch? Exactly. So we're on the cleanup branch now. Okay. So now let's make the changes that we wanted to make. Now that we're safe in this other branch, we're not on our master branch, we're in the safe branch, right? What's the name of our safe branch? Cleanup. We named it cleanup because we're going to clean up some stuff. You name your branch after what changes you're going to make. So we're going to remove all the text files. So git rm.txt. So again, the wildcard.txt just removes all txt files. So instead of git add, we're git removing all these. And now it just removed all those files. Notice in this finder, it automatically makes all those changes, right? You made it through Git, but it actually works on your directory. So those text files don't exist anymore, am I correct? It said remove all those text files. Okay, good. So now we're going to commit this. So there's only two times when you can, there's only two ways you can stage. One is to do a git add, another is to do a git remove. Git add is when you're adding things that you've changed but haven't necessarily removed. Git remove is when you've removed things, like you're removing files or you're removing directories. Okay? Now generally you guys are just going to be using git add, so don't worry too much about the remove. So git commit now, what are we doing? We're doing a hard save, right? So -m, what did we do? Remove all the cat. I'm going to put cat files. And we made all those changes. Okay? So we changed all those, we deleted all those, and we've saved that change. Now let's say that I've tested my branch. I went to, I asked someone else to look at it. I tested it out. Everything's good to go. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out master. So what does checkout master do? Master what? What are they called? Branches. Yeah, so, but I think you had the concept right. So you're switching branches. So before you were on what branch? Yeah, you guys were on cleanup. And now you guys, when you type this in, you'll be on master. So we switched to branch master. Okay, now we're going to merge all those changes that we just did. Because again, we were playing it safe. We didn't want to do this in master, so we did it in a different branch. So we type in git merge everything from the cleanup branch. Merge all those changes into master. Hit that. And now these two branches, master and cleanup, are the exact same. Right? Because we merged everything that was inside cleanup, all those changes we made, and we merged inside master. So there's no difference between cleanup and master. So we don't really need cleanup anymore. We've already merged everything into master. That was our end goal. So now we can delete this branch called cleanup. And look at that, it's deleted. So now if I typed in git branch, I only see one branch, right? Why is that? Exactly, I committed genocide on all cleanup branches. So now we're going to type in git push. And for me, I want you guys to type in the whole thing. In their case, they want us to type in just git push. I'm going to type in git push origin master. And that's it. That's the only Git that we're going to use throughout the next 2 quarters. Now, this seems like a lot, but if you use it every class for the next 2 quarters, you get pretty used to it. Okay? Now, I want you guys to do something important. I want you guys to take a 10-minute break and relax. Get some snacks, stretch out, and ponder on why Prince had to die. I'm sorry, I know. But for every death, there's a birth. There you go. seen Berserk?
No.
Oh man, Berserk is like probably the most brutal, like bloody.
Have you seen Dead Man Wonderland? That one's really
No.
good.
Is it really gory?
Yeah. The first episode is like fun.
Yeah, I think I could do it like a little bit, like
Yeah.
where it makes sense, but not when it's like the whole
Just
thing.
out of nowhere.
Just like why? Why are you? This is just making me feel queasy. I like sitting down, relaxing, watching anime, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm gonna kill everything in my sight. Pull the intestines out and choke people with it. That's it. Yeah, I think. Do you guys know Conrad Salinas? No. He doesn't know my class. Yeah, me and him used to just talk about One Piece all the time. Like,
I know One Piece.
yeah, Naruto.
I had one class on
Oh,
it.
me and him used to talk about One Piece a lot. He's really into it too.
I have no idea what that is.
One Piece.
Okay.
Now you know.
Okay.
Now you know.
Alright.
It's like when the dictionary refers to like the term, it's like see One Piece, when you're looking up the word One Piece. You know when you look up a term in the
Yes, I know what
dictionary
you're talking about. But
and
it's
it
like,
references itself,
yes, I get it.
hence being self-referential. Therefore,
One Piece.
One Piece.
When I hear One Piece, I think One Piece sucks.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now I just have the immediate like show in my head. It's interesting the perspective that we have on different things. Right? Like I always wonder about this. Like when people think America, when I go abroad, like whenever I go abroad, I'm like, what do they think of like America when they first hear America? For me, it's like bald eagle with like machine guns, like over a mountain, just being awesome. But like other people probably just like drones or something weird, or like the South. Okay, is everyone back here? Yeah. Okay. So I put the phases of committing files into nice little diagrams. So the first step, you have untracked files, right? So if you haven't made any changes, I should do it in the Australian accent from now on. No, if you don't have any changes, then there's not going to be untracked files, right? But as soon as you make any change to any file, it's going to start off as Git saying, oh, hey, I noticed something happened. These are untracked files. In order to commit them, you then have to stage them and then commit. So I gave you the commands for them, git add or git commit. To add everything at once, there's actually a command called git add dash capital A. Can anyone guess what the dash capital A stands for? No, that's the first one. Git add dash capital A. It wouldn't be git add. That would be redundant.
Oh, man.
Git add all. That way you add everything at once, right? So instead of doing it one by one, right, you're not adding each element step by step. Did you just try to put those? Oh my god, never mind. That's the screen. So you're adding everything at once, right, to staging. Then you commit everything together, right? So git add dash A, so git space add space dash capital A. That'll be for staging and then committing afterwards. So those are two steps. So it starts off as an untracked file if you have one change made, then you stage it, and then you commit. When you have a commit, you can always go back to that version of your project at that commit point. Okay? So we can always go back, we can go forward to whatever commit that we have. So I put a list of Git commands, not in any order, but this is just like a reference file, so you guys don't have to write down all the commands. I'm going to change this. So before it was git add dot, they changed it to git add dash A. So I'm going to put git add dash A. There we go. Okay. So if you refresh your pages, you should see that. So again, these are all the different commands. We already went over them. So if you guys need to learn how to do them, that's how you do it. You guys are going to need it because you guys are pairing up into groups. So pair up into groups of 2 or 3, depending on how many people are. I think there's an odd number this time. So Frank, Jen, and Lydia are going to pair up. You two are going to pair up. So yeah, the alpha, gamma, sigma that we already had from the beginning. All right. So open your terminal, create a directory, name it, Git project, blah, blah, blah. Go through these steps. There's going to be a bunch of steps. I want you guys to go through this series of using Git on your terminal in order to be able to set up Git on your directories. Cool? So again, this is very step by step. And once you guys are done, then I'm going to go through it myself with you guys. And Sigma, you guys should sit next to each other. You guys are like the most like dissociated group I've ever seen. Okay. There's no outlet over there? Oh, that sucks.